Welcome to the Rookie SDR show. I have an awesome friend here, Derrick Williams, not just an SDR advocate, but at the same time, a mentor to me. You will find out how me and Derrick met, and as well as his sales career and what he's doing within the sales development world. Derrick, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's exciting to be here. I love what you're doing on TikTok, on the gram, and LinkedIn. You stay super active, so I'm all about rookie SDRs. That's who I work with most often, so I'm happy to help any way I can.
Awesome. And Derrick, where are you from right now? Like, where are you
Uh,
located?
I'm actually in Northern California. I just moved about 2 hours east of the Bay Area, San Francisco. So I'm in Northern California.
Nice. I'm down here in Lima, Peru.
I'm
You
jealous. Let's
say
switch. Let's switch, man. It's probably a lot more beautiful there.
for sure. You've been to Latin America before?
Yeah, yeah. I spent 10 days in El Salvador actually, visiting my wife's family and seeing all the sites. Yeah, one of the on my bucket list, as I think I've told you before, one of the things on my bucket list is actually to live out and live out there for, some period of time, for a couple of years or something. But that's probably down the road a little bit.
Awesome. Well, Eric, I remember when we first met, I was just starting into my SDR journey and I was reaching out to many different individuals within Instagram, trying to get some, a little bit of help on what an SDR is, how the role is within the sales perspective as well.
Yeah.
You have over 20 years of experience within sales. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your career and how you everything you started all the way until now?
Yeah, well, I'll kind of work backwards. Right now, I'm kind of a dual-headed beast, if you will. I work for Tenbound, who is a research and advisory firm, pretty popular in the space. You might know their sales development conference that they host every year. But I
Nice.
also have my own practice where I focus on sales development, implementations, and sales development improvement projects. So I've been doing that for several years as an independent consultant. And it's just recently that I joined Tenbound as they were growing, and the space as a whole is really growing. But in addition to my focus on sales development, I also am double certified on Salesforce, so I lend myself pretty well to the tech stack and helping administer and wire together integrations and that sort of thing. So I do help clients with Salesforce exclusively in some contexts, and then a lesser aspect of my focus is sales development or sales recruiting as well. It's kind of a natural offering within the consulting space, but those are the three lines of service and the three things I focus on most, whether it's on the Tenbound side or the 3Link side. It's still the same core focus. Now, before I got into consulting, I was a manager, a director of sales and SDR teams for several
Yes.
years. Worked for companies like Verizon, Dell as a manager, smaller startup organizations as of late. You might be familiar with HG Insights or HG Data. They're really big on selling technographic data to sales and marketing teams.
Hmm.
So I had a good run there not too long ago. But yeah, before I was in management, I was an individual contributor on the front line, carrying a bag, knocking down quota, and doing all that. So I was in the field as an outside salesperson. I've been an inside salesperson. I've been a telesales SDR type of role. And yeah, it's been a little over 20 years, but it's been a long ride. It's all been on technology, so all selling emerging technology the entire time. I've never sold anything or been involved with anything but SaaS and tech and that sort of thing.
Awesome. And I guess my thing is whenever I was reaching out to you, I reached out to you because you had awesome sales experience. But what made you get into, into the whole, tech aspect as far as like you saying, hey, you know what, I'm gonna go and help out other SDRs that are coming into the industry.
Hmm.
What made that transition and that decision into getting into this?
It's a good question. It has to do with fulfillment. A long time ago, I acknowledged that I had a predisposition towards leadership, and it was said to me many times. Someone watching this has probably been in that situation where they've been a leader amongst their peers but didn't have the title, right? Everybody comes to you, or you're very proactive in helping the team and wanting to see everybody get better and improve. So there's that piece of it. I have a tendency to want to help and guide and lead and mentor. So it's just part of my nature. But I've had some pretty crappy managers too in my life, and I've had some really, really good ones that have really helped course correct my life in some cases, not just my career. And so I really want to be that person that drives me in a big way, is to really help people who are earlier in their career, like people helped me early in my career make that transition. I don't have a college degree, so like a lot of people, I don't look like everybody that's in tech either. And so, but somebody took a chance on me, gave me an opportunity, and I worked my tail off and just made the most of an opportunity. And so I've been doing that ever since, if you will, really. But that's what really drives me to get into helping SDR specifically. And the reason I focus on sales development, kind of last point, is I've just always been a hunter. In all of my front individual contributor roles on the front line, the one thing I was very proud of that I did better than the next guy was my fearlessness when it came to prospecting. Whether I had to knock on doors, whether I had to make phone calls, I was extremely aggressive. I was savvy, but I was really about volume and working hard and just being fearless and not making excuses for prospecting. So that hunter mentality, that hunter tendency, I think that's why I live and breathe sales development to this day, because it's all about the hunt.
Yeah, for sure, and that's awesome. You mentioned hunter, right? That you like to hunt out there. You were basically knocking on doors. You were cold calling individuals. But what is one of the things that, like, let's say like your first 100 dials within the
Mm.
tech hemisphere? How was that? Like how was it from going from door to door and then getting onto the phone and doing them 100 dials?
Well, I did have some outside sales experience
Mhm.
to a degree before going real hard on the phones, but there were several roles where it was kind of a, there was days you were in the office making calls, and there was days you were knocking on doors. But
For sure.
if I was to put myself back into at the beginning and my first 100 cold calls and what that looks like, knowing what I now and kind of thinking back, I definitely was not as fearless as I claim to be now. I'll tell you that. I was scared, man. I have a tendency of not wanting to let people down. I have a fear of failure, like most people, and so I probably over prepared more than I needed to in those times. I would talk fast when I got nervous. I still do to this day in some cases. My fillers were ums and were ridiculous, but you power through. I get sweaty palms, my heart starts racing, I get kind of choked up when I'm nervous, and this is
Yeah.
natural human behavior. So, you know, but every call it gets a little bit easier. So if I was to replay those 100 calls, I'm sure by the last 20 calls, I found I found the zone, and that's when it gets exciting. That's when I kind of gamify it and start. I get on my feet, I get pumped. I'm like, okay, the next guy, I got him. This is mine. Today's the day. And then, I'll take it to another point too. Like maybe 100 calls wasn't enough. Sometimes you got to keep dialing. And there was roles I had where we made 150 to 200 calls a day, and this is before auto dialers and outreach and sales loft. So I'm aging myself a little bit, but yeah, in the beginning, yes, it's very difficult. It's nerve-wracking, but as you get accustomed to it, you can make it fun and get really good at it.
I remember as well. Like my first $100 was quite scary, and just like you said, I was mumbling at some of the things that you kind of lose track, right? So coming to this point is that emotional intelligence. Speaking to
Mm,
you like a couple of times, that's one of the best things for an SDR, right? To have that emotional intelligence. You as a mentor, how do you teach your SDRs to have that balance within their emotions whenever they're on the phone doing cold call, like emails? Yeah, how
mhm.
do you do that?
It's a really good question. I try to focus on the mindset as much as possible. If you follow me on Instagram as you do, then you know I'm all about trying to be as motivating as possible. And I try to be, real and vulnerable with people about these things too, right? And make sure that we're all kind of seeing it the same way, that
Yeah.
this is hard stuff. What we're doing isn't easy. It's very thankless and unforgiving, and we have to put these kinds of things in perspective. Um, I try to drive home certain philosophies, like every no gets you closer to a yes, and I truly believe that, because you're going to win a lot, you're going to lose a lot more than you win in this game, and in life, really. So I
Yeah.
think I try to connect with people not just on a professional aspect and what the emotional intelligence that is required to make cold calls and prospect and be in business, but it's also the emotional intelligence that we bring to work every day. I was asked on Twitter recently what I meant by, their problems become your problems. It's a piece of management advice that I've received over the years, and just things I've come to realization is that the people who work for you, their problems are your problems, and it doesn't stop at their problems with prospecting and cold calling, right? If you have a guy on your team and he's nervous about popping the question to his girlfriend and getting engaged, that's a conversation you want to be having with him, And so these are the ways I try to address emotional intelligence with my team is, take a personal, not just a professional approach, get to know them personally, what's going on in and out of their life, and
Yeah.
get to, in those sorts of things. Um, yeah, and then the more you get to know people, the more you can reinforce the things that bolster their confidence, right? If you know they, studied a certain difficult topic in college, you can glean from that and say, well, if you could do that, you can do this. If they had a hard time coming up in life and they have a strained relationship with their ex and their kids, you can build on that and create motivation and inspiration out of these things. And yeah, and it's just being there a lot of times when they get knocked down and they get their teeth kicked in on a call, it being there to lift them up and tell them it's okay, pat them on the back, and just get them pushing on to the next call. I think sometimes that's all we need because a lot of times we're kind of on an island and nobody's really empathizing with what we're going through, and they just make calls, just book meetings, and that's what I mean by
Yeah.
thankless and unforgiving. But I don't know if that answers the question. There's so
Yeah.
much that we can unpack there. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that you mentioned, yeah, you are on Instagram. I'm a fan. I'm a follower. Um, right now, the SDR role has evolved within not just making calls, not just sending out
Right.
emails, right? Now is going into this whole, video prospecting that a lot of companies are trying to get into. But the thing is, like personal branding with an SDR, do you
Okay.
recommend an SDR have their own personal brand apart from their company brand?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, your personal brand is an extension of your resume. It's not just about, um, followers and those things. It's about demonstrating skill and competency as well. And if you can, you know, have a YouTube channel where you talk about prospecting and what you're learning, like the experience you're putting on. I think this is when you share the journey, as Gary Vee says, this is what you're experiencing with the number of followers you have on TikTok and all that. And you just signed a contract yourself. I know we're here to talk about me, but today you just signed a new contract with a new opportunity. So congratulations to you. And that came from you creating a
Thank
brand
you.
and, and building on that. So yeah, I think there's one aspect of the brand should absolutely be focused on their core competency, which is sales and marketing and go-to-market motion and all those things. But then there's a domain expertise that they have to weave in there too, depending on the company that they work for. And early in your career, you might go from one type of technology to another. So if you look at my track record, it's littered with different types of tech. It's not like I stayed in the same lane the whole time. So for that reason, you're going to switch around, but every time you go to a new company, using your your brand to drive new meetings, drive sales, expand your network, and again, just really bolster your ability, how people view you and your ability. There's a thing that I talk about on Instagram a lot, and this is going straight to the heart of branding. It's not what you know, it's not who you know, it's who knows what you do. And if you can just expand who knows what you do and expand that reach, then the opportunities will find you.
Awesome. And you mentioned what you do, right? You mentioned at the beginning that you are doing, you got your own consulting firm, but at the same time, you're working with Tenbound. But um, could you give it a little bit explanation in simplest terms for people that are just joining into tech in a sense, like how is it you're approaching to helping other SDRs? And like just a quick overview.
Yeah, 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 sure. So with SDRs, I do one-on-one coaching. I do weekly group trainings. I do call reviews. So we'll
Hmm.
review calls together and we'll break them down and we'll do call coaching according to a call framework that I leverage. Um, we'll assess sequences. We'll help write sequences. So will help bolster their outreach and develop those skills on both phone, email, and any other channel that they need help with. And then, like we've talked about, mentorship, guidance,
Yeah,
career advice, that sort of thing. But that's,
nice.
focusing on SDRs. That's kind of what I do for them.
Yeah, exactly. And the one of the things is that I always want to ask a lot of people, right? Especially and a sales leader as yourself, and of course an SDR advocate and leader as well. That where do you see the SDR role going here in the next 1 to 2 years?
Hmm. Well, I think if companies are trying to get ahead of the curve, there's more segmentation, more role specialization that I think we'll see. Um, right now, we already know about inbound and outbound and hybrid SDRs. I don't think there's enough attention on sales development interns, sales development associates, sales development data coordinators, the people that can take some of the research and administrative burden off of the SDR so they can focus 100% on engaging, right? So, someone, an associate, an intern, a data coordinator could be handling the identifying of new leads and target accounts, helping connect the dots, making sure the cross-referencing with Sales Navigator, and some of that is already done and baked in. So as it comes up on the radar for the outbound SDR, some of that preliminary stuff has already been done because we know SDRs are slowed down a lot by administrative burden and lack of productivity. So I think breaking that out is definitely something we'll see more of. There's, people out there that are talking about the death of sales development, the death of SDR. That's never going to happen, guys. Let's just face it. Just because we gave it a new name, sales development, the idea of booking meetings on behalf of other people has been happening since the dawn of man. And so, we can go out there and try and peddle these theories of, oh, the death of SDR and these sorts of things, just to sell books and get audience and all of that. But the reality is there's good people who are, SDRs today that are
Yeah.
growing their career, becoming heads of sales organizations, changing their lives and other people's lives. And so I'm a big advocate for the further development of more sales development. I mean, it's done right. Just done
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing about it is that I noticed that a lot of recruiters and a lot of companies are very picky into choosing an entry level SDR
Oh,
or
of
somewhere
course.
on those lines, right?
Yeah.
The thing is that, like, what do you think? Like, could you give a new SDR, a new person that's just jumping into tech within SaaS or in general, just an SDR, like jumping into it? Like, what's the best advice that you could give them?
Well, I've been doing a lot of interviews. If you've, yeah, as you've probably seen, I've been doing a lot of interviews for SDR
Yeah.
positions on behalf of clients and helping people get in. So I think looking at it from that lens, the biggest thing that I'm seeing is when we're trying to crack in, our resume, our LinkedIn profile, our personal brand are not modern enough. They're not current. They're not, relevant, if you will, right? And
Yeah.
so that's the first thing we have to fix. Make sure your resume, your LinkedIn profile has statistical information. Even if you didn't do SDR work before, if you did anything that was transferable into SDR work, high volumes of interactions with the public, you could have been a host, you could have been a waiter, you could have been a bartender, but you got to quantify what you did because sales is all about results and numbers and analytics, right? So in your resume, make sure it reads like uh, a report card, and make sure it reads like the back of a baseball card, not like a job description. Okay, so that's first. Make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to snuff. Check out my boy Jared Mitchell if you need some help on LinkedIn profile advice, and then make sure you're active on the brand. And then when you get in the interview right. And one of the questions that is a make it or break it for me with people who are cracking in, this just happened yesterday. It was someone who he participated for 6 months in an SDR boot camp and went through their training program, but did not apply any practical application. It was all theory and within the classroom and all of that. So I was picking up what he was putting down. I was thinking this might be okay, and then it came to a make it or break it question. What do you know about what we do? And if even as a entry level SDR, if you can't answer that question succinctly in an interview, you probably aren't going to get that position. You're probably not going to be able to move forward because that question exemplifies a lot of different things. Did you do research? about the company? Did you prepare, impactful, meaningful questions, just like you would do if you're making a cold call, right? Same thing. So, but this is a bigger deal. This isn't closing a meeting or an opportunity. This is closing a career opportunity for you to change your life. And so you didn't do any research. You didn't bother going on the web and doing some basic background. That tells us a lot about this candidate, right? So if you can just solve for that question and do the other stuff that we talked about, if you can get the interview, right? And then if you can impress them with talking about them and what they do, I'm sure you'll have a better chance of moving on the interview process. But it's all about selling yourself, and being able to close the gap because, an SDR manager, if you haven't been an SDR before, is going to be looking for stuff you've done in your, college life or, any other area of your life. If you're changing industries, we need to be able to transfer that skill
Exactly.
set to this. So transferable skill sets. You got to be able to sell that.
Yeah, I think you hit it right there in the nail. For sure, Derek. I thank you so much for coming in here today. I know you got a busy day ahead of you,
All
but
good.
how can anyone find you, whether that's on social media or on LinkedIn, maybe
Mhm.
some SDRs that want some tips, or maybe some startup companies that are trying to get into this whole new SDR world, right? Trying to
Yep.
hire the first SDR. How can people contact you?
Well, my website is 3linksales.com. So the number 3linksales.com. Check me out there. I'm on Instagram as well. I'm pretty active there. So Derek is 3linksales is my handle. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. But those two channels, my website and Instagram, are where you can learn more and connect with me fast. So yeah, check me out there.
Awesome. Well, everyone, thank you so much for watching the Rookie SDR show. I had an awesome time talking to Derek, and I'm looking forward to see you guys next time. And I have some awesome news coming in. There he goes, his cup. Well, everyone, have an amazing day. Derek, thank you so much.
All right, man. Hey, and don't forget, casual Friday does not mean casual effort. Let's get it.